Hello students, how are you all doing? I'm hoping that all of you are doing well, you're keeping well, your preparations are going very well, right? So today we are going to look at some of the questions from Pre Prayaas third test that was conducted on 8th of March, right? I'm guessing that most of you who are going to click on this video have already given this test. If not, if you have missed due to any reason, the last of the All India mock test that is going to be conducted by Drishti IAS is scheduled on 5th of April, right? The registration link is in the description box. You can go there and register for yourself. It is in both offline as well as online mode, right? Of course, because the UPSC exam, UPSC Prelims is now just 50 days away, right? So in that regard, I would suggest that if it is possible for you, look at the nearest offline center and go and give the exam in the offline mode, right? Because it will give you the real world experience of what you are going to face on the day of the exam. All right. In that regard, what we are going to do today is we are going to look at some of these questions that came in Pre Prayaas-3 and where most of the students are getting it wrong, right? If you want to have this PDF, right, so you can get this particular PDF where it will have questions as well as their explanation, right, properly in the Telegram group that is Drishti IAS English, right? So there you can get this whole PDF if you want it, right? Now let's look at these particular aspects. The first question was regarding Gaganyaan mission. Now this is India's human spaceflight program, right? Everything about it is important this year, but even more so, there is an aspect of integrated main parachute airdrop test, IMAT, right? This is the question for the this particular question. There are three statements here. The first one is talking about the main parachute deployed through a reefed inflation process where parachute first opens partially and then fully opens after predetermined time. That means that there are different layers to this thing, right? Now, if there is anything of high value, if you are also involved in any high value project, you will always prepare for, because if one system fails, there needs to be a second system, then a third system, right? You will always prepare for redundancies, right? In that regard, this is a system where one after the other, there are different aspects that are involved. So the first aspect that is involved here is that it is saying that it is having a reefed inflation process. What is a reefed inflation process? That first some parachutes will come out, then the next layer, then the third layer, then the last layer, right? So in that regard, let's look at this particular section and then move forward. The system is designed in such a way that all three main parachutes must function properly to ensure safe landing. We just now talked about redundancies. If all of them have to perform exactly at the same time, then there is no redundancy. Even if one fails, everything fails. So logic doesn't support it, right? Then during this descent sequence, drogue parachutes are deployed after the main parachute to stabilize the crew module, and it is asking for correct option, right? Now, if you look at the particular program, IMAT program, what is there? What are some of the basic things that we have to see? So we are talking about redundancies here, right? So there will be, of course, there will be different options, right? Now, the first aspect is that it will open partially. It will open partially so that it will reduce the jerk or the load. So it will reduce jerk, then it will open fully so that there is controlled deceleration. Then it will open fully to achieve controlled deceleration. So this is the first aspect. All right. So there is a two-level thing, first partially, then fully. Why is it not opening suddenly? Why is it not opening the whole thing suddenly? Because it will lead to structural failure, right? Because the height that they are coming from, they will have a lot of momentum with them, right? and if anything happens to the parachute module, it will be very difficult to land it, right? So to not have a structural failure in this particular regard, it is a very, very mission critical aspect, right? So we have a partial and then fully opening stage, right? In that regard, what is the main consideration? It is, of course, crew safety, right? The people who are in that human spaceflight program, right? So the people who are involved in this, so they are able to safely land back to the earth, then only this system, this whole thing will be successful. All right. Now the next aspect is, what are the steps through which it is going through? So in that regard, you will look at that. First of all, there is apex cover parachutes. Apex cover parachute, it will first open up. Then there is the drogue parachute, right? Now these are different layers of the reefed inflation program, right? So first apex cover will separate, then drogue parachute will come out to ensure stabilization. Then the third is the pilot parachute, the pilot parachute, and at the last there is the main parachute. Main parachute. Now you can understand, first drogue is coming out, then main is coming out. The statement was, during descent sequence, drogue parachutes are deployed after the main parachute. That is why this is also wrong. So the only correct statement is the first one, right? That it is having a reefed inflation process. Now, I'm hoping that you can understand that this particular kind of system is used in other missions also, even when human spaceflight are not involved. Say, for example, Chandrayaan mission, right? So we definitely use it in other sense also, but because human spaceflight is involved in this particular section, this becomes really important. And UPSC is basically wanting to look at your logic as well as your knowledge of the current affairs, especially in this particular kind of very, very important missions that are going to be conducted by India. All right. So this is the first question. If you want to have the full explanation for this, you can of course go for the PDF that has been provided on the Drishti IAS English Telegram channel, right? Now the next question is from economics. The question number is 63. Here 90% of the people have gotten it wrong. Let's look at what is this question all about and why is it that so many people are getting it wrong. So the first statement is about skill impact bond, right? Skill impact bond. Now this is a new thing, right? This is a current thing, so it becomes really important. This is India's first development impact bond. It's a DIB. Now we'll look at what is a DIB first of all, right? You must have a basic understanding of what is a DIB. Then it says that it was launched in 2021, focusing on outcome-based skilling and job retention rather than enrollment. So we know that beforehand we were looking at we were much more concerned with enrollment, but now we are going for job skilling, outcome-based skilling and job retention. Now we'll look at this particular section because we need to understand this DIB, right, properly. But you must have some understanding of these things because these are in news. The second aspect is that it is, according to SIB report 2025, Jharkhand is the highest, accounted for the highest share of enrollments. It is talking about enrollments, not retention here. It is talking about enrollments. And the third is, according to India Skills Report 2024, VBox, more than 50% of the young people were found employable. Now, more than 50%. It can be 51, 52. That still leaves a lot of people who are unemployable, right? But let's look at all these aspects one by one. All right, let's look at the DIB, that is Development Impact Bond. Shall we? So in that regard, let's look at what is a DIB. Here, a basic structure, if you look at it. So here, there are three people involved, right? So firstly, there is the private investor, right? the private investor. This person is an investor, so they will fund the project, right? They will fund the project. Then comes the service provider. The service provider who will implement the project. Implement the project. And at last will come the outcome. If the outcome is achieved, then the government or the donor pays the investor. Then the government pays the investor. Now, this becomes a really radical aspect of this particular section. Why? Because payment is linked to, here, payment is directly linked to what? Results. And results of what kind? It is not just about enrollment, but what are the aspects? So job placement, job retention, not just enrollment, right? So retention. If you are able to get the job and if you are able to get retained, then only you are properly getting paid, right? So in this case, there is a shift from input based to output based, output based governance, right? So in that regard, let's look at the first question now. So this is saying that skill impact bond is India's first development bond, all right? And it is talking about outcome based skilling, job retention rather than enrollment. All of these things are correct, and it was launched in 2021, all right? So these are, all of the things are correct. As per SIB report, Jharkhand accounted for the highest share of enrollments. This is also correct. This is purely data based. If you know this particular part, then only try to answer this particular question. Otherwise, you will have to leave this question if you have not read this report. All right. The third, according to India Skills Based Report, more than 50% of the assessed youth, young population in India were found employable. Now, it is more than 50%, but not too much more than that. That is the crisis of demographic dividend that we are facing, right? That we are, a lot of young people are there in our country, but many of them, right, close to 50% of them are not employable, right? So here you will find that this is actually 51%, just 1% above. So in actually this statement is correct. There is no issues with this statement, but that also means around 49%, almost half of the young population are not employable, and it is asking for correct. So then of course these statements would be correct, but we have to understand this part because this can also be asked in mains. This particular section can also be used if there is any question with respect to skill aspect, right? Demographic dividend, skill aspect. It has been a focus in the last 5-6 years, right? If we have looked at it when we are looking at the National Education Policy 2020, right? There the lot of focus was on skills, then Skill India Mission is there, labor market reforms are happening. All of these are very important. Now, the next aspect is that, is DIB a CSR, a corporate social responsibility initiative? It is not, right? It is not a CSR activity of any of the companies, right? So it is also very important to understand that basic things about these things. It is outcome based funding. Okay, that's all. So this is all about the India's first development impact bond, that is skill impact bond. All right. Now the next question is question number 32, 89.76, and this was a relatively easier question, right? This is not as tough as the first two, right? So let's look at. So there were three aspects: dam, river, state. This drainage related aspect has been asked continuously in the previous classes also, in the previous exams also. So let's look at some of the basic things. It is asking about Koteshwar Dam, Bhagirathi River, Uttarakhand. This seems to be correct, right? Then the next one was Mettur Dam, Kaveri River, but it is not Kerala, it is Tamil Nadu, right? So Mettur Dam, Kaveri River, both of these things are correct, but it is not Kerala, right? Then Indira Sagar Dam. Indira Sagar Dam is on Narmada River, that is also correct, but it is not in Gujarat, right? So it is not in Gujarat, but in Madhya Pradesh. All right. And then Nagarjun Sagar. Now, Indra Sagar is also on Narmada River. Sardar Sarovar is also on Narmada River. So these two things, but one of them is in Indra Sagar is in Madhya Pradesh and Sardar Sarovar is in Gujarat. That you will have to remember simultaneously. Now, Nagarjun Sagar, it is not on Godavari, right, but on Krishna River, and it is shared between Telangana and Andhra Pradesh. It is very, very crucial for these two states, right? So you can understand which one of them is correctly matched, all three. So it is only Koteshwar Dam, that is on the Bhagirathi River in Uttarakhand, right? This is relatively straightforward in that sense, right? You just have to remember all these basic important aspects, right? This you can expect, okay, this one is one of the easier questions. I'm really surprised that 89% have gotten it wrong. So I'm hoping that as your revisions are progressing, these kind of information based aspect you are able to correctly answer. All right. Now the next one is from economy. Question number is 62. 88.7%. 7% of the people have gotten it wrong. Let's look at this particular case. So this is asking about pink tax. It is neither a real tax nor is it a government imposed fee, right? Now generally taxes we associate with government, but this is not, right? This is coming from social economics portion where females are charged more than males, right, for the similar kind of products, right? So this is not charged by the government, and nowhere government is charging more from the females than males, right? So it is neither a real tax nor is it a government imposed fee. So this is of course correct. Then the term pink tax was formally coined in 2014. Is it 2014? What do you think? Is it such a new thing that this phenomena is happening? It is not. Actually, this particular phenomena is at more than 3-4 decades old, right? What is happening is due to branding, packaging, marketing, right? And different kind of products that are being sold to different genders like male and female and their preferences. Looking at it, this particular term was coined in 1994, right? Now, this is something that if you know, then only answer. Otherwise, it will become a really, really difficult question, right? So I'm guessing that most of you who have gotten it wrong, they must have gotten it wrong here, right? Now, what is happening is, so it is describing gender-based price disparities in goods and services. That part is correct, but it is asking for the completely correct statement. So it can only be one, right? So only this particular portion is correct. This is pink tax. This is happening in many sectors, right? FMCG as well as others. So it is very, very important. It is among, when you are looking at it properly, so in some countries there is also a demand to investigate such practices, right? To regulate such practices. It is also coming under consumer protection aspects, right? So in that regard, this is a bit more important. This is something very different than we generally associate with our economics, but it is happening in India also, right? Now, the next question is with respect to history. Question number is 41 and 87.5% of people have gotten it wrong. Let's look at. So this is with respect to administration of Delhi Sultanate, right? Here there are 4 important functionaries that have been given and their responsibilities are given, right? If you have done your medieval part properly, right, I think you will be able to give this question a good go, right? I'm not saying that everyone would get it correctly, but if you have completed, like especially in case of administration in the medieval periods, these are very frequent questions, right? So let's look at it. So Vakil-e-Dar, it is royal household, of course. All the different aspects of the royal household, they were managed by Vakil-e-Dar, right? Amir-e-Hajib, head of the military department. Hajib was related to almost like a gatekeeper, right? Who can meet the Sultan, right? What will be the protocol that is going to be followed? That was the work of Amir-e-Hajib, not being the head of the military department. Who was the head of the military department? Can anyone tell me? Any idea? Let's see how many of you are able to actually tell me it in the comment section. It is actually a bit more important, right? So head of the military department, head of the revenue department, these are a bit more important. I'm hoping that some of you are able to tell me in the comment section. All right. Then there is Shahna Phil, superintendent of elephants. This is correct. And Mutasarrif, right? Mutasarrif. So this is with respect to accounts. Okay. So these three are correct. This is very information based. If you know, then only answer. Otherwise, leave it. Right? If you have revised it properly, you will be able to answer it. But if you are not, just leave it. Right? It is not worth going for the negative marking. Right? If you have left a lot of questions, then this is something that you can go for if you have read this particular portion. All right. So they are asking for correctly matched. There are three functionaries which are correctly matched here. Right. Next question is from science. Question number is 84 and the wrong percentage is 87.3. In this regard, what we can see is, now because you are going to look at some of the very, very important sections, right? Science, history, economics, right? So we are running parallelly in our, if you go to the Drishti IAS English channel, there will be playlist of different subjects, right? There is also a playlist for places in news, right? So these are some of the things, especially which might help you, right? So just go and take a look at all of these places in news, different subjects related playlists. If it helps you, because these are made by very good faculties, very expert faculties. One of them is, of course, me. I'm taking a look at the places in news aspect, but you can also look at other subject related videos also. Very basic fundamental aspects are being covered there, so it might help you. All right, so let's look at science. Now in this regard, we are going to look at some statements are there. Statement 1, statement 2 and statement 3. Now this is a very, very technical aspect, so let's look at it properly. Here, the development of atomic stenciling enables precise control over the surface architecture of nanoparticles. Nanotech is very important, right? These kind of new technologies are very, very important in our regard, right? So direct questions are coming from these particular sections. Generally not very, very tough questions, but they can ask you something that is very much in news or was very important in the last 1.5 years, right? So here it is, the second statement is saying that the atomic stenciling technique, iodide atoms selectively attach to specific faces of gold nanoparticles and act as mask to control polymer attachment. Let's see. Okay, this is the second statement. The third is the atomic stenciling method relies on high temperature. Now, if you know one thing about this particular aspects, nanoparticles aspect, it is not relying on high temperature. High temperature is very brute method कि आपने पिघला ही दिया उनको, right? That is not considered a very, say for example, very elegant method of when we are looking at nanoparticles, right? Generally speaking, when we are looking at nanoparticles, it is at milder temperatures, right? We are not using high temperatures, say. So this will be a question mark, right? Then high temperatures melting of nanoparticles to reshape their surface domains before polymer coating. This is somewhat of a question mark here, because generally speaking, whenever we are talking about nanoparticles, that is not the case, right? But let's look at it. So it is asking about which one of the following statements with respect to above statements are correct. Let's look at this atomic stenciling aspect and then look at it properly. All right. So the first aspect that we need to know about this particular concept is, or this particular technique is, that it is a surface engineering technique. Atomic stenciling is a surface engineering technique. Now, what is happening at this particular area? So let's take this particular particle. This is a gold nanoparticle, let's hope, right? And we are masking some of the areas, right? Through which, so how are we masking them? Through iodide atoms, right? So we are selectively looking at particular areas of this nanoparticle and masking them. Now, if any polymer needs to get attached, it will only attached to these regions that are not masked. So this is the method through which we are doing this atomic stenciling, right? Some parts are getting masked through iodide items, other parts are left alone where the polymers can get attached. That is the basic idea behind atomic stenciling. Now, if you look at the particular aspect, so the development of precise control over surface architecture of nanoparticles, this statement is correct. In atomic stenciling technique, iodide items selectively attach to specific faces of gold nanoparticles and act as masks to control polymer attachment, right? So these are the basic aspect. अभी हम लोगों ने देखा कि how iodide items are used to make a mask, and the third statement is saying that we are using high temperatures. We are not, right? We are not using high temperatures. If you are using high temperatures, then why would you require such surface engineering methods, right? So the third statement would be wrong, right? The first two are correct. All right. So this is with respect to atomic stenciling. Next aspect is from geography. 26th number question. Again, quite a lot of people have gotten it wrong. Let's look at these. This is with respect to coniferous trees. Now these are very, very interesting, right? I'm hoping that most of you are familiar with these kind of vegetations, right? These are generally found in very colder climates, right? Very pointy kind of leaves, right? So in that regard, what are some of the basic things? So they are generally evergreen in nature. That is one of the most important characteristics of this kind of vegetation, right? That they are generally evergreen. Next, some of the more common conifers are chestnut, oak and chinar. Is it so? Is it that these are our most common ones? Have you heard about pines, right? Have you heard about pine, fir, spruce, right? So these are our most common ones, right? So this is pines, fir, spruce, cedar, right? Not chestnut, oak and chinar. Now this particular section, this is purely your geography, physical geography aspect, right? I'm hoping that you are clear about these kind of differentiations. All right. Lastly, it is asking about acidic soils are found in the regions having coniferous forests. That is correct. We'll look at it why. So here it is asking for correct यहाँ पे. So 1 and 3 are the correct options. Now let's look at these particular areas. Where would you find coniferous trees? So coniferous forests are found where? So if you are able to even visualize this particular kind of trees, no, you will know that they are found in very high altitudes, right? So this is generally very high altitudes or areas with very cold temperatures, right? So these are some of the basic aspects. These are having very pointy trees, pointy needle shaped leaves, almost needle shaped leaves. Some basic, right now we are looking at some really basic characteristics of them, right? In this case, they are non-flowering, right? They do not flower, right? They are non-flowering trees, and next they are found in cold climates, so these are some basic aspects. Now in that regard, if you look at the first question, the first statement, it was saying about what? So it was saying that these are evergreen trees. Of course, not all of them, but majority of the coniferous trees are evergreen. There is a large variety that is not evergreen, right? So that is a basic aspect. Next, the second statement was about which are the different trees. Of course, we have looked at pines, firs, right? These are our coniferous varieties. The third statement is interesting. It is talking about this particular kind of forests, you will find acidic soils. Now you will have to connect this particular aspect. Why? With respect to which particular section? So you will have to connect it with this needle shaped leaves, right? This is the reason for them having acidic soils. Why? Because needle leaves decompose very slowly, right? It leads to acidic soils, right? So needle shaped leaves are the reason for acidic soil, one of the major reasons. All right, I'm hoping that you have basic aspect, like they are high altitude and they are found in very cold temperatures. All right, these are some of the basic aspects regarding the coniferous forests. All right, you can take a good look at the explanation that has been provided and through the PDF on Telegram channel. All right, next again it is from environment, question number 99. Again, more than 85% of the people have gotten it wrong. This is important actually with respect to agarwood, right? Now let's look at agarwood. What are the basic aspects here? So it is listed under appendix 1. Yahi pe galti, right? It is appendix 2. Why? Because if it is listed under appendix 1, there can be no trade of any of these varieties, right? But it is one of the major varieties that are found in Northeast India, right? So if it would have been under the appendix 1 of the CITES, then there would have been no trade regarding it. So I think we have found one of the culprits here only, right? Then the next statement was talking about agar formation in this species occurs naturally due to fungus host guest interaction, often triggered after boring by larva of a stem borer. Now, this is very straightforward. If you know this particular aspect, if you have heard about it, if you have read about it, then only answer. Otherwise, most of the time, these kind of questions, you are going to get it wrong, right? So this particular, if it is so specific, right, then it becomes very important that you have a good understanding about them. Otherwise, this is a question that you have to leave so that you are not going to get negative marking. All right. In this regard, if you look at this particular statement, the first statement is of course wrong. It is in appendix 2. Now you should have a basic understanding of what is there in appendix 1, 2 and 3. So one is that trade is not possible here. It is no commercial trade is available. So no trade. Next, appendix 2 is about regulated trade. And appendix 3 is about country specific provisions, right? So generally what UPSC will do is it will try and confuse you between these two, 1 and 2, and that is what has happened here, right? So it has put it in appendix 1 rather than appendix 2. Now the next aspect is straightforward. If you know this, of course this statement is correct, but if you are going to only be able to answer this particular question if you know about this particular aspect, right? Where is this found? So it is found in Northeast India, right? It is found in Northeast India and it is regulated here. All right, that is basic aspect. India is one of the major producers, right? Northeast India is among the major producers. It is a plantation based cultivation. All right, this is with respect to agarwood. Next question is with respect to economy. Question number is 60. Again, more than 85. Let's see. So this is about priority sector lending, right? Now this is a very core aspect of our economic syllabus, right? In that regard, it is asking about that PSL target for urban cooperative banks has been revised to 75% from earlier 60%. They have just exchanged it. So earlier it was 75%, now it is to 60%, and they have just exchanged the two figures. So this is of course wrong. The description of the priority sector was formalized in 1992. It is 1972 on the basis of report submitted by informal study group on statistics. Both of the statements are of course wrong, but let's look at the next aspect, that is on which are these particular sectors where banks are given or banks are instructed to give priority sector lending. So these will be sectors like, now this you can be asked. So PSL sectors would be, say for example, agriculture, right? MSMEs, right? Agriculture, MSMEs, education, housing, all right, housing, है ना? These are vulnerable sections also are there. Next important aspect is what are some of the important dates that are or years that are associated here. So here you will find four major aspects. So first is 1968. In 1968, what you will find? So there was a National Credit Council that was established. A National Credit Council that was established in 1968. Then as we move towards 1972, the PSL or priority sector norms were formalized, right, under on the basis of the report submitted by Informal Study Group on Statistics. That is all right. Next, during the 1990s, right, during the 1990s, LPG reforms happened, right, but the PSL aspects were continued, right? So PSL norms were continued, and during the 2020s, what is happening now? So during the 2020s, now they are getting the targets are getting revised and their definitions are changing. So there is revised targets, right? So these are some of the basic aspects with respect to PSL norms. This can be asked, this has been asked before, this can be asked again. All right. Next is, you can, this is from question number 59 from economy, more than 80% have gotten it wrong. Let's look at it. So this is, despite the wide acceptability of UPI, cash transactions remain the most preferred mode of transaction in India. Now, generally speaking, this statement would look very correct, right? But there was a recent report that has shown that that is not the case now, right? So let's look at this particular report, because I'm guessing that most of you would have not heard about it, then only more than 80% of the people are getting it wrong. So this is from Department of Financial Services. The report was titled Socio-Economic Impact Analysis of the Incentive Scheme for Promotion of Rupee Debit Card and Low Value Beam UPI, right? Very long title for a report, but it is saying that now 57% preferred transaction in these modes rather than cash. Now this is very, very important. This goes against conventional wisdom and it is a new data, so it becomes really important. This is from Department of Financial Services. Hence this option becomes wrong. Now I can understand why more than 80% of the people have gotten it wrong. Now the next is the National Payments Corporation of India, NPCI, was established in 2012. No, this is in 2008 with the support of Reserve Bank of India and the Indian Banking Association. These two are correct, but it is in 2008. So this will also be wrong. NPCI is owned by a consortium of promoter banks, including both public and private sector banks. This is correct, right? So if there is an option, yes, the option is 3, right? 3 only, that is option A is correct. All right. Now these things are very important. UPI in itself becomes really important. If there is a new report that has come, then becomes very, very important. You must have a good look at this particular section. All right. Next is from polity. Now this is, I'm hoping that the people who are properly in their revision phase will find it easier as they go forward. Okay, let's look at it. Why 84% of the people have gotten it wrong? So this is with respect to the parliamentary procedures, and in case of this particular section, it is asking about substantive motion. Now, substantive motions are what kind of motions? Can anyone tell me what kind of motions are substantive motions? It is a very, very important aspect. See, there are 3 kinds of motions. We know na, there are 3 kinds of motions. Which are these? So there is substantive, right? Substantive, then substitute, and lastly there is subsidiary. All right. If you do not know anything about it, right, if you just have a good understanding of vocabulary, just try and look at these three terms and try and understand which one of them would be independent of any other motion, right? This is the most important aspect, that substantive motions are self-contained and independent proposals, right? They are self-contained independent proposals. All right. So substantive is self-contained and independent. Substitute in itself means in place of the other, right? So this will replace another motion, right, in place of the other motion, right? And subsidiary, what is the aspect of subsidiary here, right? So in this case, what is happening is, in subsidiary motion, it is there to modify, to delay, to facilitate a consideration, right? So in both these things, it is dependent on the original motion itself, right? In case of substitute motion, it is proposed in place of an original motion, right? In case of subsidiary motion, it is dependent on another motion. But substantive motion is self-contained and independent. Now, in that regard, these are impeachment, removal of judges of the Supreme Court and High Court, election of the Speaker, right? Confidence or no confidence motion. These four, I'm guessing that most of you would be able to answer. I think the main aspect where you would have floundered would be motion declaring a member's seat vacant, right? This is also a substantive motion, because it is a very, very important aspect that, okay, now this particular seat is vacant, and we can conduct any by-election for the same, right? So in all of these aspects, what is happening is, these are very important considerations that are done by the Parliament, right? In that regard, here, in all of these cases, it requires a express decision of the House, right? It requires a decision of the House, and in sare cases mein, you will find that substantive motion is used. All right. So this is with respect to D, the answer is all the 5 statements are correct. All right. Next one, which is from question number 97 from environment. So let's look at it. So this is about biofuels. Now, this is a very, very hot topic, ethanol blending, biofuels, all the things, right? So let's look at it. So biofuels are promoted as renewable, yes, to alternatives to fossil fuels in their transportation sector due to their potential environmental and energy security benefits. That is the main aspect about it, and that is why government is going so hard with respect to E20 fuels, right? So ethanol blending till 20%. So this particular portion is, of course, the main reason behind their push. Next is, first generation biofuels are produced from non-edible. No, there is a difference from first to second generation. Do you remember what was the difference between first generation, second generation, and third generation biofuels? Now this becomes really important. So with respect to first gen, then second generation and third generation. First gen, would anyone like to try? किसी को try करने का है? नहीं? All right, let's look at it. So first gen was from direct food crops, right? Food crops. So of course it would be edible, right? Here you will find crops like, say for example, sugarcane, vegetable oil. So from sugarcane you are going to look at, you are going to extract ethanol, right? From vegetable oils you will get biodiesel, right? So this is first generation biofuel. Now in the second generation you will find non-edible biomass, right? Here you will find crop residues. So non-edible biomass right? Here you will find crop residues. Here you will find wood waste, right? And then third generation is very straightforward. This is algae based, right? That is the differentiation. So the second statement is saying that first generation is for non-edible. It becomes wrong. Biofuels currently meet more than 1/4 of the global transportation sector energy demands. Of course not. It is between 3 to 4%, right? It is between 3 to 4% only, not 25%, not 1/4, right? So this is of course also wrong. This is also wrong. First statement is correct, right? So that is the basic aspect with respect to biofuels. This is very important this year, right? Different aspects about biofuels, different types of biofuels, where are we sourcing it from, what are some of the crops that are associated with them, right? Positive as well as negative. In mains as well as prelims, you can expect a question from this particular section. All right, next is from economy. Question number is 64. This is regarding a bonus issue, right, and stock split, right? Now this might look very difficult, but because UPSC in the last few years is directly asking from this particular section, so we will just make a table and we'll be 100% clear about this particular section. Of course, if you actually read about it, you are able to deduce what is the basic aspect. So in case of a bonus issue, a company issues new shares to shareholders free of cost, and the face value of each share reduces in the same proportion. This is statement 1, right? Next is, in case of stock split, new shares are issued from accumulated reserves. Now, when there is bonus, you are taking out from the reserves, then only you are giving bonus, right? आपको bonus जो है ना वो reserve से ही मिलता है, right? So यहाँ पे सबसे crucial aspect तो यहीं पे हो गया. Next, let's see, and the company's share capital increases accordingly. Now let's look at just एक table बनाएंगे and we will be 100% clear about this, right? So first of all, bonus issue and then stock split. All right, with respect to bonus issue and stock split, इसमें let's थोड़ा सा इसको इधर कर देते हैं. So let's bonus issue. All right, so what is the source, from where is it coming from? So here, in case of bonus issue, the source are the reserves. From your reserves, you will get the bonus, right? In case of stock split, it is of course not reserves. Here stocks are splitting, right? So here individual stocks are splitting. It is not coming from reserves. Next, what is the face value here? So face value in case of bonus issue remains the same, right? Remains same. And in case of stock split, because individual stocks are now being split, that is why their face value is getting reduced. Say for example, if a particular stock is valued at 100 units, right? Just take hypothetical example. If you are splitting it into 2, so then face value becomes 50 and 50. That is how it is reducing in face value. Now here, what will happen to capital? So in case of bonus issue, it will increase, right? In case of stock split, it is remaining the same. Why? Because there is no new money that is coming out, right? Here there is no new money that is coming. Just take a look at it, and in case of bonus issue, it is increasing. Are you able to get it? So in case of bonus issue, the company is using its reserves, right, to issue new shares, right? That is why the face value remains the same, but capital will increase, of course, right? But in case of stock split, what is happening is that individual stocks are being split, right? It is not reserves, but individual stocks are split, right, or divided, right? That is why the face value will reduce, but the capital remains the same, right? Capital has not changed, so that is the basic aspect. Now if you look at this particular section, So in bonus issue, a company issues new shares to shareholders free of cost, and the face value of each share reduces. Is the face value reducing? Is it the case? Face value is remaining the same, right? So in that regard, this is wrong. In stock split, new shares are issued from accumulated reserves. No, right? And the company's share capital increases. Is the share capital increasing? They are remaining the same, right? So here, again, it is wrong. They are doing what? They are mixing and matching the definitions. This is a very, very common trick of UPSC, right? So here it was asking about correct. Of course, neither one nor two are correct. All right. Next is with respect to environment. Question number is 88. Now it is reducing, coming close to 80%. Let's see. So here it is asking about greenhouse gases emission intensity. Target rules 2025 established sector specific emission. All right. Emission intensity benchmarks as part of operationalizing India's carbon credit trading scheme. This is very, very important for this year. You can have a good look at them in pre as well as mains, right? So this is about talking about emission intensity. That is absolutely correct. We are not going for absolutes, but intensity. And it is sector specific. That is also correct. This looks like the right statement. Now let's look at the second one. So GEI target rules impose absolute emission caps. No, we are looking at intensity. So absolute might be wrong. On all industrial sectors, it is not all industrial sectors, including power sector beginning from 2024-25. So this seems to be the wrong statement. Statement 3, under the CCTS framework, industries exceeding their emission intensity targets are automatically exempt from penalties if they demonstrate participation in PAT, right? Now, if you are giving any company this kind of provision, right, then why will they take any steps, right? So this doesn't make any logical sense only. And so it is asking about which of the statements are correct, right? So let's look at all of these three things. First, the basic aspect is that this kind of method or this kind of provision is due to what particular aspect? What are we trying to do? So this is from climate change perspective. This is an important aspect, climate policy, climate change perspective. Here we are going to look at, or we are going to do what? So under CCTS, that is carbon credit trading scheme. It is a market based mechanism. It is a market based mechanism, right, to reduce our emissions. But we are going to look at what? So we are going to look at the intensity of our emissions, right? We are looking at intensity of our emissions. Here we are using the baseline and credit system, right? In case of emission intensity, what is emission intensity all about? So emission intensity means what are your emissions per unit of output. This is emissions per unit of output, right? That is what intensity means. Absolute is direct figures, right? There you don't have to look at any of these things, है ना? So absolute emissions mein you directly look at the total emissions, है ना? That is there, right? Emission intensity is per unit of economic output. How much emissions are you creating, right? In that regard, the first statement, of course, is absolutely correct, that it is part of the CCTS and we are looking at intensity, है ना? In the second statement, we are not looking at absolutes, and in the third, here you are not going to get any kind of exemption if you are involved in PAT scheme. Now, what is PAT scheme? Can anyone tell me? It is also one of the schemes with respect to climate change. But what is it about? So this is the PAT scheme is about perform, achieve and trade scheme, right? This is perform, achieve, trade scheme, right? You will not get any kind of exemption if you are in this particular scheme, right? So this is important, right, that you have a good understanding about these particular aspects. All right. Next is the next question from The subject is current affairs. All right. Question number is 90. Still we are in the 80s. So let's look at it. So here the question is with respect to global gender gap. Global gender gap report. Now, because it is 2025, it is still important for us, right? In this regard, so basic aspect is, first of all, who is publishing this particular global gender gap report? Can anyone tell me in the comment section? Anna, which institution is publishing the global gender gap report? Is it the World Economic Forum? Is it the IMF? Is it any other institution? Which institution is publishing it? So first you must have a basic understanding about that. Then it is talking about global gender gap index benchmarks gender parity across 6 dimensions. It is 4 dimensions, right? It is 4 dimensions. All right. Next, it is asking about in the 2025 edition, no economy has achieved full gender parity. That is correct, right? Iceland continues to hold the top position. That is also correct. So if it is asking for you correct, it is of course 2 only, right? What are the 4 dimensions that it is looking at? So in this case, the 4 dimensions are with respect to global gender gap index. These are 4 economic participation, economic, right? Second, it is about education or educational attainment. Third is with respect to health and survival. Health and survival. And fourth, where we have suffered this time, right, is political empowerment. Is political empowerment, right? Now what is happening here, that we have less number of women MPs than there in the Lok Sabha than there were in 2019. So in 2019 we had 78 women MPs. In 2024 general elections we got only 78 in 2019, 74 in 2024. Here the share of women participating in Parliament has reduced, in the Lok Sabha has reduced, and overall participation has also reduced. Ministerial participation has also reduced. That is why we have suffered, right? So these are some of the basic things with respect to this particular report. Next is from geography. Question number is 23, right? It is talking about the water bodies from where Tropic of Cancer is passing through. Now, all 5 of these water bodies are very important for you. You must have a good understanding about them. This we have seen, or most of them have seen when we are doing the places in news. You can look at the playlist there, right? I think we have covered more than 6 or 7 places, different months already, and we are going to look at the whole year there, right? So I'm only taking it there. So in this regard, let's look at which of these water bodies is Tropic of Cancer passing through. So if you look at this particular map, here you will find the Taiwan Strait, right? And here you will find Gulf of Mexico. Now, in case of Taiwan Strait and Gulf of Mexico, they are directly lying on the Tropic of Cancer. But Gulf of Aqaba is just above Tropic of Cancer. It is near where? So it is after the Red Sea. As you move towards the Suez Canal, this particular region has Gulf of Aqaba and Gulf of Suez. So there are 2 gulfs here, right? So this is Gulf of Suez, this is Gulf of Aqaba, right? Very near to Egypt and Israel regions. So there you will find Aqaba. It is not lying on the Tropic of Cancer, right? Then Strait of Hormuz, very much in news. It is, the Tropic of Cancer is passing very close to Strait of Hormuz, but not through it, right? So it is very close, but not through it. And Dead Sea is even above Gulf of Aqaba. It is somewhere here. So Dead Sea will not be the answer, right? So which are the 2 straits? So this is Taiwan Strait and Gulf of Mexico. Only 2 is the correct answer. All right. That is with respect to this one. Next is economy. Question number is 61. Let's look at this particular section. In this regard, it is talking about rupee dollar swaps enables the RBI to inject rupee liquidity without directly altering domestic government bond yields. Now, what is happening here? What are some of the basic aspects? Let's look at it properly. First of all, what you have to remember is both of them come under what kind of mechanism? So these are monetary policy instruments and forex policy instruments, right? So they are monetary policy instruments and forex policy instruments. Which one would be about forex and which one would be about monetary? So this rupee dollar swap is about forex instrument, and OMOs, that is open market operations, are about monetary policy instrument. Now in this regard, what you are going to find is that it is using rupee dollar swaps to inject rupee liquidity without directly altering government bond yields, right? This seems to be correct, right? Because what is happening in the case of this kind of operations? So it is mostly about forex stability, right? Exchange rate stability, forex stability. It is not concerned about, it is concerned about liquidity, but it is not concerned about this kind of government bond yields. Government bond yields are are bought and sold in case of open market operations. Here RBI buys and sells government securities. किस चीज के लिए? So this will impact the interest rates, right? So OMOs are helping with respect to interest rates and bond yields. They are not going to impact what? Exchange rate. Exchange rate is about forex, right? They are not going to impact exchange rate, right? They are about what? Interest rates, bond yields, and liquidity. So in that regard, which one is the correct answer? So rupee dollar swaps are not having any impact with respect to the domestic government bond yields, right? So this is the correct answer. This is the wrong answer. OMOs, monetary policy instrument, these become really important for you. Do try and remember them properly, right? Next is with respect to current affairs. The question number is 65. Finally, we are inside 80%, and that also means that we are going to complete our video very quickly. So here you are given archaeological site, state, and description. These are all the different archaeological sites with respect to megaliths, right? Now megaliths are becoming really important, and in that regard, what you are going to see is there is a combination of history and current affairs that is happening now, right? So it's a very different kind of question in that regard. Let's see what is the aspect that you are going to face here. So here these are about the UNESCO's tentative list. So these particular sites are related to UNESCO's tentative list, right? Now in this case, which are these particular aspects? So here it is talking about Mudumal Menhirs megalith. It is in Tamil Nadu, and it is a megalith site. Is it in Tamil Nadu? In this case, it is not. It is in Telangana. There are quite a few megaliths that have been found in Tamil Nadu, right? These are what? Very huge burial stones, right? But this particular site, that Mudumal Menhirs, are not in Tamil Nadu. They are in Telangana. Dholi. So of course, elephant inscription of Dholi. This is in Odisha. It is an Ashokan rock edict, right? After the Kalinga War. So this is absolutely correct. Then there is Jhansi Fort, right? Jhansi Fort in case of Chandel dynasty. This was the Bundelas, right? Bundelas, right? There is a very famous poem also with respect to Maharani Lakshmibai, right? So Rani Lakshmibai, if you remember that poem, you will also able to answer this particular section. So this is asking about which of the information is correctly matched. So this is wrong and this is wrong, right? So what is happening is only the second one is correct. And where is the second one? C is the only correct answer. All right. Next is with respect to history. The question number is 46, right? Here you will find which are the megalith cultures, right? In this case, all these things, Maski, Adichinlur, and Junapani, are important. But where you are going to look at is where are these particular sites going to be found, right? So in this case, with respect to again megaliths, we talked about now, it becomes really important. So Maski is in Karnataka, right? Maski is in Karnataka. Maski is also related to other aspects of history. You must have a good look at this particular unit, right? Then Adichanallur is in Tamil Nadu, all right? And Junapani is in Maharashtra. All three of them are correct, right? Except of them, there is also another site, that is Brahmagiri, right? So there is another in Karnataka only, that is Brahmagiri, right? All four are related to megalith cultures of India, right? They are, the three sites are of course correctly matched. Other one from Karnataka is Brahmagiri. You must have a good understanding about all four of them, right? So these are, all three are correct, all right? Next one is from economy. The question number is 51, right? It is asking about price elasticity of demand is measured as a percentage change. This is absolutely correct, right? In quantity demanded divided by the percentage change in price, right? That is absolutely the right definition. And we are talking about percentage change, right? So this is the exact definition of price elasticity. Next question, next statement is saying that the value of price elasticity of demand depends on the units. If it is percentage based, it will not depend on units. That is the best aspect about percentage, right? So it will not depend on units in which price and quantity are measured. Of course, that is wrong. Which one of the four statements are correct? It is asking about correct statement. So this is one only, right? Why is it one only? Because it is like whenever we are describing anything in percentage terms, then units are not important there, right? So these covers all the, I think, major aspects with respect to our section. In Pre Prayas, the third, most of these questions people are getting more than 75% wrong. Now that is a part of concern, right? But if you are able to use the next 50 days well, I can assure you that you will be able to get quite a lot of questions that you are currently facing some problems in. You will be able to get it properly correct, right? You can take a look at some of the good verified sources also. Some of the sources are there on this channel itself in the playlist channel, right? But you can also look at some of the other good sources from where you can revise it well, right? Use these 50 days properly, right? Give a lot of good quality mocks. Of course, you can register for the open mock test, that is Pre Prayaas-4 on 5th, that is going to be conducted on 5th, right? Take it from my side, give it in the offline mode if possible, right? It will really help you, right? I can only give you all the very best from my side. I really hope that you are able to secure good marks in this prelims as well as the final results. All right, that is all for today. Thank you so much. This is Lalit Kishore Chaudhary signing off for today. Thank you.
For more informative content, like, share and subscribe, and do not forget to press the bell icon to get the notifications.